everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday. Hope your guys' week is going well. I'm excited to jump right into another video with you guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at this up and coming new moon in the sign of Sagittarius. If you like my content, you want to see more of it, please click the bell button below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow and lets you know when I have new content on my YouTube channel. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can come back and let me know how some of the predictions play out for you, and let me know where this is taking place in your chart. Consider sharing this video with other astrology enthusiasts. I appreciate it, as any interaction with the channel really helps the channel grow, and we're growing closer and closer to 40,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for all of my new subscribers, my members, and those of you guys who are just kind of stopping by. It's nice to have you here. So we've got this new moon in Sag coming up. It's going to be, depending on where you are in the world. I know we have people all over the world. I'm here in the United States, and I'm Central Time. So for me, it's actually going to be taking place on the 9th. But it could be, the 9th, on the 1st of December. But for some of you guys, it's actually going to be taking place at the end of November. So depending on where you are in the world, you're going to have to adjust your time zones according to where you are. But it'll be actually taking place for me here on the 1st of December at 12:21 a.m. Central Time. That means it's going to be 10:21 p.m. Pacific and 1:21 a.m. Eastern Time. Adjust your time zones depending on where you guys are. And we have this beautiful new moon that's taking place in the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius at 9 degrees. So we've got a double dose of Sag. If you happen to have any personal planets or placements at 8, 9, or 10 degrees of Sagittarius, this is very personal for you, as the new moon is going to be aspecting this particular degree. Think of it as like a new beginning, a fresh start. This will also be impacting the 9 degrees of the mutable signs. So if you have anything in Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces, you're going to be feeling the effects of this particular new moon as well. Now, 9 degrees always correlate and connect to Sagittarius. If you guys have been following my work for some time, you know that I like to incorporate the Sabian Symbols as well as degree astrology. So 9 degrees has connections to Sagittarius, so it's going to be connected to things like philosophy, higher learning, anything revolving around travel or exploration. Themes revolving around law and justice in the court systems definitely come up with this degree, as well as religion and spirituality. Now, we learn a lot about foreign cultures and long-distance communication when we're talking about Sagittarius energies. And number 9 always teaches us about universal wisdom and growth. It's considered the number of like universal love and completion and wisdom. So I think that it can kind of signify that there is like an ending of a cycle and a beginning of something new. And there is some kind of wisdom that we're going to be gaining throughout this particular new moon. Now, new moons plant seeds. Eventually, we will see over the next 30 days that there can be some new developments in the Sagittarius area of your chart, but it will take up to 6 months before we see a full moon in Sagittarius in 2025. And that's when a lot of the intentions that you're setting should be kind of coming full circle. Now, this is a bit of a tricky new moon. Even though Sagittarius energy is very positive, it's expansive, it's optimistic, some of the aspects that this moon is making in the midst of a Mercury retrograde and some squares to both Saturn and Neptune has us doing a double take. We're having to rework and rethink things. So keep in mind that there's a lot of working time with this new moon. We can set intentions with the new moon, but it's going to be unfolding for several weeks. And I encourage you guys to keep an open mind really all of December. That's what the Mercury retrograde is all about, as Mercury's retrograde in the same sign of Sagittarius, and there's mutual reception with the ruler Jupiter in Gemini. Think of it as both of these planets are kind of aspecting and opposing each other, and because they're both in their, opposite signs, they're trying to reconcile something. They're trying to learn from one another. They're trying to turn a negative into a positive. So it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of work out the kinks in communication, travel, and learning, and also some of the delays or challenges or even blockages that we're going to be seeing because of the squares to Saturn. Now, the Sabian symbol that we're going to be reading today is going to be Sabian symbol for 10 degrees of Sagittarius, because this is at 9 degrees and 32 minutes. So we're going to be rounding up to 10. And if you guys are not already following me, you know that, those of you guys who are following me know that I like to use the Sabian symbols. So this gives me a little bit more context for what's going on with some of the transits in action. People are always asking me, where did you get that book? Check out the links in the description below. I have a whole book list of like the decks and the books that I use on my channel. So if you would like to use them, you can find those there. All right, so we've got Sagittarius 10, a golden-haired goddess of opportunity. The keyword is reward. The theme is looking beyond surface appearances. The symbol speaks to the rewards guaranteed to the individual who is independent and self-reliant and willing to work hard for what he wants. The image of a golden-haired goddess of opportunity alludes to an individual who follows his own dreams, creates his own fortune, and refuses to prejudge a situation or accept anything at face value. The emphasis here is that the symbol is keeping an open and unconditioned mind. The individual who believes that bread can be made only from wheat may easily starve in the field of rye. Implicit in this symbol is the principle that every organism possesses a secret of its own survival, and that self-knowledge is the ultimate key to success. At its highest, it represents self-confidence, an incredible sense of timing, and a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Watch for opportunism or wild goose chasing. The accent is on being in the right place at the right time to catch the brass ring. Luck plays an important role today. Your greatest advantage lies in putting forth the effort to reap the benefits of the opportunities that you're given. Be willing to continue in a course you know is right for you, even if you have to go it alone. Guard against expecting others to carry you or cater to your whims. Don't lose your enthusiasm or abandon your goals just because you aren't continually receiving a pat on the back. Stepping stones are good fortune, luck, reward, benefit, protection, prosperity, compensation, rumination, restitution, and reimbursement. Okay. So generally overall, like pretty positive sign. It's basically saying like, keep on keeping on, right? Don't get discouraged maybe because you're going in a direction that you know is right for you. Maybe you're not feeling like you're getting the recognition that you need. Looking beyond the surface of situations, like finding the silver lining is kind of how I see that. And I like that it talks about being at the right place at the right time. I think that so many of the transits, and I saw it in Virgo season when there was oppositions to Saturn, saw it in Gemini season when there were squares to Saturn, and now we're seeing it again in Sagittarius season, squares to Saturn. These squares and oppositions always materialize as being like, okay, there's the challenge, right? There's the delay, there's the roadblock, there's the setback, but it's making for like a great redemption story, in my opinion, like all year long. And I really waited for Sagittarius season. I've been excited because I knew that this was going to be the turning point as we started to see planets come through Sagittarius, which was about optimism. It is about what we're learning. It is about our journey, right? And what we are able to kind of share with the world and having a different kind of higher, perspective or like vantage point after the experiences that we've had. All coming into superior position where it's kind of bearing down on Saturn and it's also starting to bear down on Neptune. So truth, okay, the truth will prevail, which is kind of like a funny thing with Mercury retrograde in opposition to Jupiter. It's like, what is the truth, And everybody's truth right now, I think, is very different. But I feel like that's really kind of where we're at. And in a global way, it can be like, well, is the narrative shifting? Is the truth prevailing? Are we starting to see the truth about what's kind of going on in the world kind of coming out? But in our own lives, it's about our own personal truth and how we're having this like awakening, like this reckoning almost throughout this Mercury retrograde in Sag and the new moon in Sag, where we have the opportunity to have renewal when it comes to our belief system or when it comes to our purpose or kind of our life direction. We're still kind of working it out. So this is a new moon that I feel like for a number of reasons you can set intentions, but there is some flexibility. And that's so great whenever you see mutable squares. We want to see flexibility. We want to see the ability to kind of change and adapt and give us a little bit of time as we're kind of getting into the end of the Mercury retrograde before we can really start to see these intentions grow. Personally, I feel like this is about persevering. I think it's also about kind of like moving forward and like taking some of the good with the bad with the squares to Saturn and some of the lessons and like integrating it into kind of looking at the bigger picture and being like, okay, well, it made for like a really great, like I said, redemption story, or, you know, story of overcoming something, or, you know, being able to talk about how far you've come and what you've learned, and being able to share that information with other people. Sagittarius is also like about the idea of keeping alive wisdom and teaching. And so I think that a lot of it can be kind of connected to that, like we're teaching through experience. It might also, with the squares to Saturn, be referencing like looking back at, you know, historical or like ancestral kind of knowledge, and kind of comparing it with the past, and like that we're learning from the past, or we're like learning to like not repeat some of our past mistakes. Now, in general, a new moon, right? We have a new moon roughly every 28 days. So this represents the period where the sun and the moon are going to come together into a conjunction where they're the same degree. And we have a new moon in Sag every Sagittarius season. It's going to be different degrees every year. But the symbolism and the themes of a new moon in general, you know, in Sagittarius specifically, is going to be about adventure and exploration, right? This is a sign that's fire, so it's daring, it's active, it's creative, it wants to get out there and explore. It's adventurous, right? Because it's ruled by Jupiter, so it wants to expand and it wants to learn about other places and people and culture. Sagittarius archetypally is known as the traveler. So this new moon is encouraging us to kind of set out on new adventures, and that could be quite literally or figuratively, in a sense of broadening our perspectives and also our beliefs. And it can also be like intellectually as well as spiritually, because of that kind of connection to the higher mind. Sagittarius can be about higher education institutions, but it can also be about our spirituality and our faith and our connection to the way showers or the teachers or the gurus. Like this is also Sagittarius as well. I love a new moon in Sag for hope and optimism at the very least. That's the one thing that you're kind of guaranteed, even in spite of some of the aspects you're going to see with this new moon. There is this inherent optimism with Sagittarius, right? And usually they have like a shit-eating grin on their face when they're kind of talking to you and telling you about their plans. And it's always a cool thing to experience this energy every time of the year, because I feel like it makes us a time for envisioning the future and thinking about things much more positively and kind of optimistically, and setting intentions that are also very expansive and hopeful. So it's interesting that it always kind of coincides with the end of the year, where, you know, we're on one hand kind of reflecting on where the year has gone and what we've been doing, but also starting to really think about where we are going in the future and like what next year can hold and like what is possible for us, and what we're planning to achieve and kind of do over the next 12 months. I like Sagittarius new moons also for, you know, philosophy and beliefs. I think that this can be a period of, you know, there really being like a sense of ripeness for exploring or re-examining our own belief system, philosophies, or our greater life purpose. But for some of us, it can also be a time where it's like, I want to take a new course. I want to, you know, learn something new. I'm going back to school. I'm going to be working with a mentor. You know, maybe I'm going to be thinking about writing something or publishing something. This is the energy that is connected to Sagittarius. So for some of you guys, it might be that you're doing these things. For others, it's that you're just learning something new about the area where the new moon is going to be taking place in your chart. Think about expansion, think about growth, right? That's basically what you're focusing on, depending on where Sagittarius is in your chart. It is great for learning and teaching though. So, you know, this energy really, the new moon is setting new intentions, and Sagittarius is really fostering a thirst for knowledge. So this new moon really supports starting new studies or traveling, you know, going somewhere and learning something, you know, taking a workshop, or sharing wisdom and information with other people. That's definitely a theme of Sagittarius. You're also going to want to focus on the themes of freedom and independence, because that's what Sagittarius stands for. So things, you know, themes revolving around liberation from constraints or seeking personal truth is definitely going to be coming to the forefront. I think it's kind of hard not to have that stuff happening right now in the midst of a Mercury retrograde in this sign, where there's a lot of reworking and rethinking. What do I believe in? What is the truth? You know, where am I going? And all of these conversations seem both bigger than usual with oppositions to Jupiter, bigger news cycles, bigger global conversations, bigger discussions revolving around what's going on with communications, with, you know, court systems, with traveling, right? And then the squares to Saturn, which is talking about, you know, where we are feeling like communication is being thwarted, where we feel like travel is being limited because of Saturn and Pisces. Issues with immigration, issues with flooding, issues with storms. These are all Saturn and Pisces things. And then we also start to kind of see that Mercury square Neptune, which also makes it incredibly difficult to understand, comprehend, figure out, gain clarity. So generally a new moon is like, yes, I know what I'm doing. I'm getting really clear about my intentions. I know where I'm going. And I'm going to tell you guys right now that this is a new moon that's kind of like, hold on, record scratch. Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I'm still figuring it out. Maybe the intention is about kind of staying open and fluid and not too rigid, and being willing to open one's mind, change direction, learn something new, and that we're going to have to kind of roll with the punches of some of the starts and stops, but also some of the bigger kind of question marks that are coming up. So in a way, it's almost like the new moon comes in, but we're not quite ready yet to set these intentions. And you may feel that when we have the new moon. It might be like, well, I think I know what I want to do in this area, but I'm not entirely sure. So give yourself a little bit of time. The beauty is that we're going to see Mercury kind of go back and forth over the new moon degree. So I feel like it may be beneficial for some of you guys to make a list of your intentions, sit with that list, and maybe you're going to be sitting with it really all the way through, several weeks into December, until Mercury actually stations and comes back into conjunction with this degree. And then you can update that list. You can update your intentions. You can see what was and wasn't working or where the blind spots were, and then kind of see how that's going to be growing over the next 6 months. Now, obviously the ruler is Jupiter, right? Jupiter is associated with Sagittarius, and it is technically, in its opposite sign. So we have got Jupiter in its fall in Gemini, where on one hand, this broadens communication, this broadens media, this also broadens themes revolving around documents, learning, travel, all that stuff. And we have mutual reception because Jupiter's in a Mercurial sign and Mercury's in a Jupiterian sign. And this basically means that they're saying the same thing. But because both of them are in their fall, okay, the problem here is that they are both a little disgruntled. They're both not playing with home field advantage. They're not speaking the same language. I think that's probably the best example I can give with this, because it does talk about learning, education, information, and like literally there being some kind of cultural or educational divide, separation, maybe bias. And so I think that, with the opposition, it's a really important thing to kind of consider, because that's the strongest aspect that you're going to see. Technically it's a pretty wide opposition to the new moon, but the new moon is in opposition to Jupiter. So that means that there can be, something outside of ourselves, a conversation, an experience, something that we learn, something that we read, right? Gemini is a newspaper, it's a blog, it's a conversation, it's, it's media, it's news. That really broadens our kind of global perspective or our philosophy, our belief. And then you take it a step further and you look at, the ruler being in opposition to Mercury, which is saying big ideas, big news, stuff that feels like it's larger than life, blown out of proportion, too good to be true, right? Almost with Mercury in opposition to Jupiter. And so I think that that's important. It really kind of shows us, with Mercury in opposition, with Jupiter retrograde, right? Just focusing on Jupiter. With Jupiter retrograde, that, there is a challenge in communication and beliefs right now, right? Even if it wasn't aspected. Because Jupiter in Gemini, when it's retrograde, it might make the energy, a little bit more introspective or reflective about how we communicate, and especially when it comes to our beliefs or our ideas. And this opposition can bring tension between the desire for growth, right, Jupiter, and also the need to refine or rethink how we express our views, right, Gemini. Further being kind of brought forth by Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, it's saying the same thing. So it's kind of like cool to see, like, the jam band in the sky all kind of playing the same notes where everybody's equally kind of confused or reworking or rethinking. Everybody needs to kind of go back into their sheets of music, kind of practice their own bit so we can kind of get on the same page and be playing in tune. I think with Jupiter retrograde, there's also this theme revolving around internal versus external growth. Obviously, Sagittarius wants to get out there. It wants to be big. It wants to do it now. It wants it to be fast and quick because it's like a fire sign. But I think this aspect is really indicating a period where personal growth is more about internal understanding rather than outward expression. Or outward expansion, even, Jupiter and Gemini. So there could be like a reevaluation of what you believe in versus what you've been taught or what society expects. I'm going to say that again. There could be a reevaluation of what you believe, right? What you believe versus what society expects. And I think a lot of that is the retrograde kind of working itself out and kind of being like, well, this is what I've been told and this is what I've learned, but do I really believe in it? And are we also walking the walk and talking the talk? If there are things that we're saying that we believe in, are we really applying that into our own lives, right? And then the squares to Saturn, and Neptune. Like we could see some very hypocritical things kind of going on with people during this particular cycle where they're, preaching, Sagittarius energy is known for getting on its soapbox. I mean, I love you guys, but that's definitely one of the things that I've noticed the most about Sag energy is they will preach to anybody and everybody who wants to hear their own personal kind of gospel. And I think what's funny is that is very Jupiter energy. It's not necessarily Sag, it's Jupiter. It's the teacher, it's the mentor. So we're going to see a lot of people kind of going back and forth about, their own personal beliefs. And we're going to start to see where some people aren't really practicing what they preach. We're also going to be seeing with squares to Neptune that there are some people who are just like completely delulu, beyond belief. Be careful whose advice you buy during this time, mine included. Be cautious and be careful about what you're hearing and where your information is coming from and the facts and the figures and the data. There's going to be a lot of things that are still going to be up for debate, and we're waiting for like this process of the Mercury retrograde to kind of shake out. Obviously, retrogrades are time for reevaluations, right? We turn within. Oppositions can give us opportunities. So I see this also as like opportunities for clarity and adjustment. So this opposition can serve as like a balancing act where there's like an opportunity to adjust one's life philosophy to better align with our own personal truth and to communicate that in a much more effective way. And I think we're going to see that more when Jupiter goes direct. So we'll definitely see that closer to like February of 2025. Just in general, I mean, the opposition to Jupiter, it makes this so much bigger. Like a new moon in opposition to Jupiter is like, there is this massive opportunity. And like, if I could only reach it, or if I could only get this, assistance or this help or something from outside of myself, that's the opposition. It's going to make this new moon definitely pack a bit of a punch. I think it's about lessons in growth and expansion coming from outside of us, which is ironic with Jupiter retrograde. It says, get internal. What do you think? What do you believe in? What are you reading? Mercury retrograde, what am I thinking? But actually the mutual reception and the retrograde and the fact that both of them are in their fall tells me that we're spending too much time focusing too much on what we think, what we believe, what we've read, what we've been told, what we know to be true, that we are isolating ourselves from a bigger global conversation, that we are becoming so self-consumed that we're not able to see that we are all kind of in the same boat, that we're a lot more similar than we are, I think, different. And I think that that's really what this is about kind of learning how to kind of show up at the table and communicate again. This is about expansion coming from outside of us, outside perspectives, different points of view, and engaging with a wide variety of beliefs. That's what Jupiter and Gemini is all about. So don't get stuck in your own little bubble, your own little, echo chamber, your small kind of like perspective. Get out of that. I think with the new moon in opposition, to Jupiter, I think that this is basically saying that there's this dynamic where there's like a pull between the urge for growth and the need for flexibility and communication. So the opposition could manifest as like challenges that's like balancing personal beliefs with external interactions. And like a lot more people, I think, are going to start becoming a little bit more comfortable talking about what they really believe in, I hope. That there's less stigma or judgment, that there's less persecution, rejection, isolation, as a result of, people becoming more open, more honest, less afraid of sharing their perspective. But tolerance is a big thing. The square to Saturn is respect, it is tolerance, that there is a line, that there's a way to be able to share your perspectives without disrespecting other people, right? Without persecuting other people, without blaming other people. And it's a very fine line, obviously, doing that with some of these retrogrades and these oppositions. I think that the other thing that's worth mentioning that's really important is that Mercury will retrograde over the degree of this new moon. Okay, so you're actually seeing Mercury retrograde from about 22 degrees of Sagittarius all the way back, I think, to like right around 6-7 degrees of Sagittarius. So Mercury is actually going to hit this degree 2 separate times after the new moon. So you're going to see it hit on December 10th and December 22nd. So make a note of that, December 10th and December 22nd. This is why I said make your new moon intention list, sit with it, think about what you're kind of hoping to achieve, what you're hoping to do. Maybe you'll find that, December 2nd, when Mercury retrogrades over this, you're like, I have some changes that I want to make to, my intentions. I have some tweaks that I want to make here. I have some new ideas. Throughout the Mercury retrograde cycle, we're going to see Mercury oppose Jupiter, where there's going to be really good opportunity for feedback, getting support, having people kind of read through things, giving us some input, giving us maybe some different perspective. And we're also going to see Mercury square Saturn, where it's going to start to show us that through that open dialogue, we're starting to see where there's been blockages, where there's been limitation, where there's been isolation and separation. I'm living for some of these people on social media that are starting to say things like, I'm starting to wonder if the news that I'm reading or the stuff that I'm seeing on social media is like, am I in an echo chamber? Like, am I not seeing the world for what it really is? Like, I'd love to hear from different people's perspectives. Like, I'm seeing a lot of that right now, and people who are willing to kind of have an open mind. Mercury is connected to Jupiter because Jupiter is in Gemini. So the conversation is, well, what can we learn, right? What can we learn about culture? What can we learn about education? What can we learn about health? Ironically, at least, from my perspective, I live in the United States, but these are huge topics right now that are being brought up, like what we're needing to discuss and keep an open mind about and be willing to learn about when it comes to health. When it also comes to education, when it comes to the rule of law. Jupiter is about laws. And so all of these things are kind of like up in the air, and they're all kind of being reworked. And I think for some people, obviously this is a time where it's like what you have always thought or what you've always believed in, now that's being challenged in some way. Your reality is being challenged. And that could be, squares to Saturn, squares to Neptune. Then there are people in a different camps that are kind of like, well, it's nice to finally, be able to have this change of pace where we can have opposing views. We can have different perspectives. We can allow there to be space for people who can question the narratives again, And I think that is more kind of the opposition to Jupiter. And I know that it's going to take some time to get through this cycle into the beginning of the year before this gets sorted out. But it tells me that there are several layers with Mercury going back and forth over this new moon that is really important. And I think one is, when it comes to communication and mental activity, right, Mercury, there is a reevaluation process that's going on. So we're reevaluating what intentions am I setting in this house? So, Mercury is known for reevaluating, reviewing, and also, during the retrograde, it can be about delays or miscommunications. So when this energy touches a new moon point, it's suggesting that new beginnings or intentions during this time are also going to involve a process of revisiting and rethinking. So likely your intentions or your plans are going to need adjustments, and you may feel like things aren't really unfolding the way that you anticipated, but that's okay. That's part of the plan. We're learning something in the process before we kind of finally iron out some of our intentions later in December. Yes, we may experience some timing and delays, right? And I think I've said in previous videos, when I talked about Jupiter square Saturn, some of the biggest blessings are unanswered prayers. Obviously, Pisces can be about prayer, and Jupiter can be kind of about our faith or our philosophy. And certainly we're praying for things. We're putting our hands together with Jupiter and Gemini. We're saying, please give us this thing. And I think what we're learning from the opposition is like, actually, had we been given those things, we probably wouldn't have learned some valuable lessons. We probably wouldn't have had better things come along, better relationships, better jobs, better opportunities. And that there's been something that we have learned through the process of having something withheld or having something delayed. So timing and delays, right? Timing issues can definitely happen here. I do feel like, expect some delays with what your intentions are. We need to wait for certain information or clarity to kind of come through. And this is really encouraging us to be patient and thorough rather than just like hastily kind of setting intentions and just assuming that something new is going to come without doing any of the work. Obviously, new moons also are very introspective. So there is like this sense of, setting intentions and initiating new cycles with new moons. But with Mercury activating that new moon degree several times, there's an emphasis on internal dialogue, getting the dialogue right, doing our research, getting clarity, and, new projects or ideas might start from a place of deep thought or reconsideration of old ideas, which I love the Sabian symbol. It was talking about like opportunities kind of coming, and it might come from being in the right place at the right time, or, you know, having something that kind of springs up where you know that's the path that you have to kind of go down, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. So this can be a really amazing time where ideas, you know, things that we're writing about, things that we're sharing, things that we're teaching people can be like really, really beneficial if we're really taking the time to really work through it. I would just say also just, you know, in the themes of like a retrograde, reconsideration comes up. It's like, I set this intention. It's like, well, do I still want that? Hold on a second, scratch that. Like, let me go back to the drawing board. And you might do that a couple times. And so it's likely that intentions that you make, plans that you make, things like that, they might be subject to change, and you might need to rework or rethink them several times. And it's not necessarily negative. It could just lead to like a much more like robust or well-considered kind of intention that you're going to be setting. Watch for information overload or confusion. This can happen with Mercury in opposition to Jupiter, with Mercury, you know, retrograde, with Mercury in its fall, with Mercury square Neptune. There is definitely this feeling of being overstimulated or kind of confused. And there can be a mix-up of information, unexpected changes in plans due to misinformation or misunderstandings. And this suggests that clarity might be delayed and that you need to seek out the truth behind what's going on with those new intentions. I encourage you guys to revisit past ideas, revisit what you've done in the past, what has happened in the past, what has worked for you, what didn't work for you. You know, Mercury, obviously, when it goes retrograde, we bring up past issues or, you know, kind of ideas for reconsideration. So for some of you guys, you might be going back to, you know, old projects or, you know, things relating to the new moon's themes, depending on where it is in your chart, and it could come back into focus. Learning from experience is another thing that I put on here because I feel like, you know, Mercury retrograde over the new moon is kind of saying like this is an excellent time for learning, especially from past mistakes or overlooked information. So it might highlight an area where you need more information or a different approach before proceeding. Obviously, in order to do this, we need to be, you know, a little bit more mentally agile. So, you know, you might find that that's being tested and it's really encouraging you to be more flexible and adaptive about your goals and how you perceive them. Just do the inner work, I think, with Mercury retrograde, you know, and when I say that, it's about, you know, deep psychological or spiritual kind of awareness where the new moon's energy is coming in and it's helping, you know, process Mercury's retrograde and its introspective kind of qualities. And this may lead to profound personal insights or revelations about how you communicate with yourself and how do you communicate to other people. Doing this can provide you the opportunity to really integrate, you know, better and also have a sense of wisdom that you can share with other people. Because that new moon in Sag wants us to have a fresh start and it's being touched multiple times by the retrograde, it can symbolize integrating these lessons from the past into new beginnings and ensuring that the cycle starts with wisdom, not just enthusiasm. So here's some practical tips that I can give you guys for working with this new moon. Number one, I would say documentation. Keep records and journaling during this time, okay? So records, journaling, setting an intention list, anything like that during this particular period to track changes in your thoughts or plans. And I would say start this at the beginning of December, do it all month long. That's my recommendation. Even if you want to do it until we get to the second, you know, Mercury conjunction, you can do that, but do it all month long when it comes to reworking the Sagittarius area of your chart. Be mindful that communication is very important. You know, we need to be extra clear in our communications and perhaps even delay important decisions or contracts if possible until we've gotten out of the Mercury retrograde, which is going to be, you know, closer to the second half of December. Reflect when necessary. You know, this could be meditating, this could be resting, this could also be, you know, writing to kind of help kind of clear through mental clutter that the Mercury retrograde may bring. And just overall, I would say that, you know, this is really good for new ideas. We just need to kind of work through the process, and the process will not feel very straightforward. It'll require more introspection and being a little bit more adaptive, and it might unfold in phases rather than all at one time. So it's going to emphasize the need for patience and flexibility and a willingness to learn from the past. Now, another really important aspect that you're going to see is that there are squares both to Saturn as well as to Neptune. Okay, so we have got the new moon at a 9 It's within about a 3-degree square to Saturn. So it does say new intentions kind of come with having to kind of, be out with the old, or, needing to, take responsibility or recognition for what's lacking emotionally, or, where we are self-sabotaging, or where we're not getting things done, or there is maybe even a lack of faith. Simultaneously, the ruler, Jupiter, is now coming back into a square with Saturn, and you're going to see that featured, at the end of December of 2024. We had this previously in August, and it basically just kind of more or less feels like we're squashing any kind of growth or optimism. Unfortunately, that's what it feels like. We saw this in August, where there was definitely a turn that happened with the markets. There was not as much optimism and growth when it comes to those things. It's pretty notorious, Jupiter and Gemini, we do sometimes see higher unemployment. We do see layoffs. It's pretty common with that cycle. And this squares to Saturn, which at the time, the last time we had it, Saturn was retrograde and Jupiter was direct. So I think it was like this unknowing of what direction we were going to kind of be going in when it comes to Saturn in Pisces. It could have been about leadership. It could have been about immigration. It could have been about our belief system. It could have been about, faith and anything revolving around spirituality. I feel like in a really general way, the, ruler square Saturn is saying like, well, now we have to kind of get real. We have to get real about what is and isn't working, where there is or is not a foundation in the Pisces area of our chart. And it can't just be like all fluff with Jupiter and Gemini, like it'll be fine, we're okay, don't worry, everything's great, and trying to make things sound better than they really are, which sometimes we can kind of do with Jupiter energy. I also feel like we do see, a pretty significant square between Mercury, Neptune, and Jupiter. So, that does create a T-square between these. And whether you're looking at it as Saturn being the focal point of the square between Jupiter and the new moon, or Neptune being the focal point between Jupiter and Mercury, there is this sense of like, where can we get clear? Where can we get clarity? Where can we get solid with Saturn in Pisces? And this is a sign that's very difficult to find clarity on. And then also, how do we tell fact from fiction? How do we get clarity when it comes to communication? We don't know, right? And Pisces is a sign that talks about feeling into things. It's also about releasing things, letting go. If there's one thing that I think that Saturn and Neptune and Pisces will do over this next year, is it will unveil a lot of truth to us. I think that there is going to be a sense of like releasing and letting a lot of things go, but there's also going to be a lot of disclosure of where we haven't been aware of things that are going on in the world, or what has been kind of hidden, or what has been going on behind the scenes. We are quickly approaching a moment where you are going to see, the stage get lit, and we're going to see the curtains drop, and we're going to see what's going on behind the scenes. And you're going to get a sneak preview of that in 2025, and then we're really going to see it in 2026. So in my mind, because that's what's coming, this is where like the dialogue, the conversations, the communications, the shifts in terms of, maybe what we've been told in Sagittarius areas of our life, what lawyers have always said the law is, or what, even professors or colleges have always told us, is accurate information or historical information. Like, I think a lot of these things are going to start to be kind of questioned. And I think that major narratives are going to be shifting in a very big way. And we're going to start to kind of see that because people are shifting their philosophy and their belief system right now. And they've seen enough things that has kind of made them question things that they're like, okay, well, maybe it has something to do with like my culture, my background, where I live, what I've been told, the media that I consume, Sagittarius kind of Gemini things. Reality check, essentially, right? The squares to Saturn is like the reality check when it comes to dreams and ideals. So Sagittarius is optimistic. Yes, everything is possible. Let's go get it done. But it's like, but is it possible? But do we have the time? Do we have the space? Do we have the capability? It sounds really good, but is it doable? Can we make this dream a reality? So the new moon squaring Saturn is like this moment where our dreams or our plans are met with the harsh reality of light, the harsh light of reality. And Saturn demands structure, discipline, and sometimes like limitation. So it's kind of like, okay, it sounds good, but like, make sure we can make it happen, make sure we can pull it off. So there is like this sense of like kind of tempering enthusiasm with responsibility with the Saturn square. And, this aspect can mean that like our vision is grand, and the execution might require patience, hard work, and a much more realistic approach rather than just kind of skating by. Saturn in Pisces is also about spiritual discipline. So there is this like point of really needing to kind of ground our spiritual or philosophical pursuits with practical steps and responsibilities. And so that kind of comes in, like Saturn really in a way kind of steals the show, I think, when it comes to this particular new moon. And it's making sure that we have that necessary, emotional foundation, spiritual foundation, practical kind of sense about us, rather than just assuming that like everything is going to be fine. Because what we're going to see in 6 months when this becomes a full moon is we're going to see realistically whether or not we were able to kind of get the job done. Take time for reflection and grounding. I really feel like this is also about learning through experience. There can be lessons around how our beliefs are affecting our reality and how we communicate and how that shapes our experiences. I also feel like this is a time where it's going to take a lot of work for our dreams to become tangible. I can't wait. I keep saying I'm waiting until Saturn and Neptune go into Aries. And I'm already starting to kind of work on my presentation for you guys on that particular ingress that's coming up. But that energy is so different. I feel like Saturn and Neptune, everybody's being coddled. It's like there's like a victim mentality, like I've been done wrong, or, this happened to me, or like, how could this be? And like when we move away from Pisces and we move into Aries, it's going to be very much like life's tough, get a helmet. You got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. A lot of us are going to realize that the situation that we're in, we can't blame anybody other than ourselves. And so if we want to sit around in all of 2025 and play the blame game, some of us we'll go back and forth with the Saturn Neptune ingress between Pisces and Aries, but then eventually it will go into Aries. And Pluto is now in Aquarius. So it means that the collective is going to change and move forward. It's either going to go barreling through crisis, or it's going to be some kind of revolution that's going to happen where all of these people are going to start to wake up. And it's going to be because the supporting aspects that we're going to see with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, where you're going to see individuals that are going to be like, yeah, it's time to get with the program. Life's tough, wear a helmet. That's really what that is about. And those of us who are willing to be bold and direct and between the eyes, and also accountability is going to be a really, really big thing. Accountability is going to be huge. That is going to be like the next big topic word. Coaches, being athletic, being active, being, self-sustainable, being independent, entrepreneurial. These are going to be things that are going to be the primary focus for the next couple of years. So right now, before we get to that point, this new moon is basically saying like, we're questioning narratives. We're questioning narratives before we get into that point next year, where we start to kind of see things kind of break down a little bit, and then we're going to have some perspectives change. I would recommend, during this time, something that can be really helpful for like rituals for Sagittarius. If you want to set intentions for travel, by all means do that. Don't buy the plane ticket, right? Mercury's retrograde, and Sagittarius is about international travel, flying. Mercury is in opposition to Jupiter. It's square Neptune and Saturn. So I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of people who are thinking they're going to be traveling over like the next couple of like weeks or months, and like there's going to be massive changes to their travel plans. I would really recommend not scheduling traveling right now, even though usually a new moon in Sagittarius, we want to do those things. But you can research, you can create a vision board, you can start thinking about where you want to go. Go and pick up a book at your local bookstore, maybe go and do some research and look into some places that you would potentially go to. Get a map, start doing some research, kind of figuring out, what you want to go and check out. What do you need to learn before you go there about the currency, about the culture, about the art and the music scene? What do you need to learn also about communication? How are you going to get around? These might be some things that you want to kind of consider. And there's also going to be this sense of like wanting to go places that you're going to resonate with. I think that's going to be another theme in terms of what's going on in that space and like what's kind of happening, because we're going to see a lot of like cultural revolutions kind of happening over the next 6 months. So you're maybe drawn to certain places where you're kind of feeling like they're going to be in alignment with some of your values or your beliefs. Philosophical journaling. So like writing down or discussing questions like, what do I truly believe? Or what am I seeking in life, right? These can be things that can really help clarify your intentions and help you get more so aware of like what direction you're going in, right? Obviously new moons are great for setting a fresh start, right? So we want to have a clean slate. So we can do rituals revolving around release. And this could be like releasing what no longer serves you and making room for new experiences. You might perform like a fire ceremony, write down what you're ready to let go of, and then like safely burn it. I think that that's something that you can do. Education rituals also, commit to learning something new. We have a new moon right at the beginning of the month. It's either at the end of November or beginning of December, depending on where you live. So pick up a new book on a subject that you'd like to learn more about. Maybe listen to a podcast on something that, you maybe don't have a lot of insight on, or maybe you're hoping to get like a different perspective or like a kind of polar view to something that you have always thought that you believed in. It can also be something like enrolling in a course, you can do that. And obviously burning candles is good whenever you have new moons in Sagittarius. If you want to do that, I recommend using a purple color. You can use gold or yellow as well, but generally purple is associated with Sagittarius or Jupiter. And this is meant to symbolize your intent to kind of gain knowledge. And then anything outdoors. Sagittarius loves that connection to nature, spending time outdoors, under the stars, connecting with this expansive energy of the universe. It can be about meditating. It can also be just about taking time to kind of take in all of the elements and just kind of unpack, what your thoughts are and kind of unwind and get grounded. All right, so with that being said, let me give you guys a couple other recommendations, and then we'll go through the aspects, and then we'll go through the 12 signs. So if you like to ritualize things during like the new moons or the full moons, I always give you guys some recommendations. I also do this in my monthly calendar. So if you guys saw my 2024 calendar, I give you ritual recommendations, stones, incense, all that stuff for each month. We have put together one for 2025. So if you guys like that and you want to have all that information in advance, and also the transits for the year ahead and much, much more, check out my links below. Go and pick up one of my 2025 astro calendars where you have all of that information monthly, so that way you can make magic happen. So if we want to work with stones, I like using turquoise personally with Sagittarius season. That's one of my favorite stones to work with. Blue topaz, lapis lazuli, and amethyst. Those are my kind of preferences for Sagittarius season. Now for herbs, if you want to burn stuff, if you want to use incense, if you want to put stuff on an altar space, I like to use sage, juniper, nutmeg, and cloves. These are all really great for kind of stimulating the energy of Sag, adventure, abundance, and also knowledge and information. I like to use peppermint oil or frankincense whenever I'm working with new moons or full moons in Sagittarius. And like I said, the color purple. Now you can use gold, and if you don't have either one of those colors, you can also use a very deep kind of like royal blue. That's also fine to use for Sagittarius season. All right, so with that being said, introspection, vision setting, fire rituals, letting go, these are all things that you guys can do. All right, so let's look at the aspects before we get to the 12 signs. And obviously we talked a little bit about the new moon is the sun and the moon coming together. So if you have anything 8, 9, 10 degrees of Sag, you are going to be having a new moon in that particular area of your life. So that's pretty big. And this is like the essence of the sun and the moon coming together. So this is new beginnings, themes revolving around expansion, exploration, truth seeking, and intentions that we're setting that aligns with those goals. We talked about Mercury being retrograde in its fall, right? And that it's going to kind of hit that degree several times. Mercury obviously is not just retrograde, it's simultaneously in a square with Saturn. It is in an opposition with Jupiter, and it is also kind of in a square with Neptune. So essentially the tension, between the desire for freedom and exploration, just in a nutshell, and the need for structure, discipline, and practical kind of considerations. That is the square to Saturn. We've also got the new moon that is slightly, it is square Saturn, but it is slightly square Neptune. It's a pretty wide square, but it's there. And this could be a sense of like, we're feeling idealistic, like idealism is almost like clashing with reality. So this square could bring about confusion and idealism and like themes of needing to be grounded. It's a time where dreams or spiritual pursuits might be inspiring, but also be kind of foggy and hard to kind of bring into practicality. Now, what I do like is that this new moon is now in a sextile to Pluto. And by the time we get to the beginning of December, Pluto is in Aquarius. Actually, as you guys are watching this, if you're watching this, the day that it comes out, Pluto is coming into Aquarius today. So here we have fire, expansion, new beginnings, kind of travel, philosophy, enthusiasm in alignment with some profound shift and transformation that's going on with society. So it's not a major aspect, but it does help empower new beginnings with depth and intensity. And it can also facilitate profound personal growth and transformation depending on how you kind of approach some of your goals. Remember that the opposition to Jupiter, which is the ruler, is really telling us expand with caution. Okay, don't move or change your mind or your beliefs or travel too quickly. That there is a need to reevaluate how we communicate. That there also is this theme between freedom, opposition to Jupiter, and structure, square to Saturn. And that there is a transformation that's kind of going on revolving around the insight that comes at the time of this particular new moon. It does want us to be adventurous, but it also wants us to be grounded. And like there is this need to really be realizing that if we're going to be setting off on a journey, we have to make sure we have a map. We have to know how to read the stars. We have to know, where our stops are and like where we're going and like how to get there. So this is a wonderful new moon to develop your map, to figure out, okay, new moon's in this house. This is where I'm going. I know that I got to go and learn, about some place or something, or I need to get insight from someone because I have a blind spot, right? Square to Saturn, or, I don't know, or there is something that is kind of confusing or foggy. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to change your mind. Don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. These are all things that are going to really help you make the most of these particular intentions that you're going to be setting with this new moon. Now, like I said, on the 10th and the 22nd of December, we are going to see Mercury return to this degree. So Mercury is still retrograde, but boom, it hits 9 degrees again around December 10th. Likely with the trine that's going to come through with Aries, the Aries moon, this can be a time where there's some really profound insight that's going to positively impact and shift and transform the way that you're thinking about these intentions. So make a note to come back to that list around the 10th and kind of rework it or tweak it a little bit. And then you're going to see this again on the 22nd. And this is when Mercury is now direct and it has hit 9 degrees again. So here it is, okay, kind of slightly in a trine with Mars, which is also now retrograde. It is coming back into the opposition with Jupiter. It's coming back into the square with Saturn. So it's going to have to go through some of the same kind of like obstacle course where there's kind of some delays and some shocks and surprises. But at least Mercury is now direct. So in my mind, if we start a new habit, we set a new intention, we start learning something new by, let's say, we start working on it at the beginning of the month, around the 1st. We're going to get to about the 3rd, 4th week of December, and we're going to have a better sense of awareness, a better plan. We're going to have a better kind of like action strategy. We're going to know where we're going. And I think we're going to handle the delays that might come from Mercury square Saturn a little bit better. Looks like it will oppose Jupiter and square Saturn right around the same day. So this is like the day after Christmas, basically. And then we are going to see it come out of the square with Saturn right around the 28th. So that just tells me that, there's still some really big expansive news coming, but it is also about challenges, overcoming things, moving through blockages, becoming more aware. So likely you guys are learning new techniques, you're learning new ways of being able to communicate. I think a lot of this is about just like learning to like not just cut people off, just not isolating, not checking out, not disassociating, not self-sabotaging. So I encourage you guys with like Mercury retrograde, I think, to be like, okay, how can I change the way that I'm communicating? And like, people don't know how I'm feeling unless I say something. And yes, it can be a very introspective period, but it can also be a time where we can become aware of like the pitfalls and the blind spots in our communication and, really do the work necessary to better connect with other people and kind of nurture our relationships of all kinds. Okay. All right. So with that being said, let's go back to the new moon. I guess one other thing I would say, and then I'll wrap this up, is that I do like the aspects to the North Node. Okay, because it's within about 5 degrees. So we've got a nice little fire trine here. Okay, new moon in Sag, trine the North Node in Aries, bold, daring, adventurous, creative, self-sufficient, independent. And then we've got this new moon that trines Mars, which is the ruler. Okay, so this is cool. Sun trine Mars also, sun trine moon, right? Mars trine moon, Mars trine sun. This is, this is like get up and go energy. This is not This is not boring. And this is definitely something that's saying, hey, we're taking action, we're being creative, we're going after what we're most passionate about, we're learning how to kind of be more self-expressive. Granted, Mars is slowing down, all right? Mars is getting ready to turn retrograde a couple days later, around 6 degrees, but you'll see this buildup coming into the new moon where we have these fire trines at the end of Sag, where there's definitely something that's cooking. It's just, I think with both of the retrogrades, we're taking a little bit more time to kind of fully develop whatever it is that we're working on or where we're going or what we're learning. Obviously, so that's the aspect there, that's the aspect there, sextile there. That's pretty much it. Mercury, Mercury is trine Chiron, Mercury's retrograde. So where can we share, with other people, how to better heal, how to connect to ourselves, share our own personal stories, our own personal wisdom that might help and inspire and assist other people. And that's pretty much it. Venus trines Uranus. I mean, that's opportunities for sudden change of fortune, especially when it comes to like money, possessions, resources and jobs and career. So for those of you guys who are like, maybe I need to go back to school. I want to change my, my major, or I want to go and get my diploma, or I want to go and learn how to, do something new. I want to go and learn a new skill. I could see a lot of people doing that. And I feel like they're going to be doing that because their values are changing. And it's not so much just about like making more money, but they might be feeling like there's a bigger purpose for them, or that there's something they're supposed to be doing and they just don't know how to get there. And so they have to go and find the teacher, the guru, the right counselor, the right kind of school in place to be able to kind of like go and get that knowledge, right? So it's also about kind of broadening your horizons in that sense. Obviously, if we have a trine to the north node, we have a sextile to the south node. So we're also actively kind of clearing out some kind of karma, revolving around the past, as well as relationships and those kinds of things. Okay. So that is the new moon in Sagittarius in a nutshell. Obviously, this new moon is really inviting us to dream big, but it's also about navigating these dreams through a maze of practical considerations, communication, changes and challenges, as well as unexpected twists that may actually lead to more, I think, of a meaningful kind of process, definitely a lot more growth and lots of transformation. Now, I'd love to show you where this is happening for each and every one of the 12 rising signs. As always, I am a Western astrologer, so I practice Western astrology, tropical astrology. I am not a Vedic astrologer. And for the purpose of my readings on YouTube, I always show this to you guys in whole sign. Okay, so you can listen to your whole rising sign. That's going to give you the most accurate prediction for this new moon in Sagittarius and where things are going to be kind of getting worked out for you. Please listen to your rising sign first. It's going to tell you, pretty literally in your house and in your life where these intentions should be placed. But you can also listen to your sun sign. That's going to apply to your overall kind of happiness, creative stuff, maybe even your career, and your moon sign and how that kind of correlates and connects to your emotions, your private life, your home, and your family. We are so much more than just our sun sign. We have to listen to all three to kind of have a better understanding of where these intentions are kind of going. And let me know. You guys can come back and let me know where some of these intentions are kind of aligning. Is it more with your sun? Is it your rising? Is it your moon? Let me know down below. If you use Placidus housing system, which I do, I use Placidus with my one-on-one clients, look for where 9 degrees of Sagittarius is. So you may have to look at more than one rising sign to get your answer, but look specifically at what house 9 degrees is at. So that's going to tell you where you're going to set your intentions for this. And once again, Sagittarius, sun, moon, rising, or personal planets, 8, 9, 10 degrees. You guys are feeling this the most, followed by the mutable signs. You guys are going to be feeling this with some of the squares, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and start first with Aries and Aries rising. You guys are going to be experiencing this new moon that's going to be taking place for you in a fellow sister fire sign, and this will be in your 9th house. So a lot of what I've been saying really probably resonates very much with you, Aries. This taking place in your 9th house basically is about higher education, travel, and philosophy. So this is a new moon that is most potent for focusing on travel, education, or expanding your worldview. My tips for you are, yes, consider planning a trip, but do some research. If you're thinking about going back to school, taking a program, publishing something, start learning about these things first, and be super open to some kind of spiritual growth that's likely going to be arising during this time. When it comes to your intentions, you want to set intentions for exploring, learning, and understanding different cultures or philosophies, with the understanding that it's going to require you to kind of get outside of your usual hangout, You might have to take a class, you might have to travel, you might have to connect with people in different places. And these squares to Saturn at the time are kind of saying that it's helping you become aware of your blind spots, and I think kind of create better because of the trine to Mars that's going to be taking place at the time of the new moon. Okay? All right, so we're going to move on now to Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, you got a new moon in Sagittarius happening in your natal 8th house of change and transformation. So this is all about intimacy, shared resources, endings, beginnings, rebirth energy, right? That's the 8th house. So this new moon could be really involving a deeper psychological exploration, financial partnerships or transformation through intimate relationships. I advise you to look into investments, look into shared resources, deepen your intimate bonds with honesty. I'm predicting a potential for significant personal transformation or dealing with issues relating to shared assets. So this could be loans, mortgages, inheritances, tax-related themes. And the intentions that we want to set here are for deeper intimacy, right? Positive transformation, handling shared finances with wisdom, right? Where we are open to kind of evolving and changing. In this particular new moon, the ruler is in your 2nd house. So it looks like some of your wealth is also as a result of some joint assets, some investments you're making with another person, borrowing, lending, spending, that kind of stuff. And this is going to be coming into a square with Saturn. So it's saying that you're having to get on the same page with other people about your goals, right? And it can be handling budgets with people at work. It could be negotiating some kind of buyout or selling. It could be about, talking to your partner or your spouse about, what your guys' financial goals are. Something here is kind of getting reworked in the midst of the new moon, and there's going to be some major changes in regards to what's going on with other people's money and how that's going to be impacting you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We just need to have lots of clarity and transparency to be able to get to the bottom of it, and also to learn to trust one another better, okay? All right, so let's move on to Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gem? You guys are doing this new moon in Sagittarius in your 7th house. So this is your opposite sign. So it is in the house of relationships. Very, very colorful time for Sagittarius and Geminis, I will just say that. So obviously Mercury's retrograde at the time of this new moon. So that in itself would be enough to kind of reel you in, have you be reevaluating, communicating, thinking differently about relationships. And then you have a new moon here. So obviously if you're single or you're partnered, it doesn't really matter. A new moon in the 7th house is basically saying we're focusing on our relationships to other people and the people that we are kind of closest to. Partners, marriage, public relationships, business relationships, your relationship with a therapist, your marketplace, what you sell. So a new moon here, you might meet new people through travel or education. There might be existing relationships that could see a new phase of growth and adventure. My tip for you is be open to meeting different types of people or taking existing partnerships into new territories. I'm predicting for some of you guys new relationships or partnerships or a revitalization of current ones. And also this focused on shared growth. And the intentions that you want to be setting are, I think, to promote equality in your relationships, mutual growth, and understanding in your partnerships. And the ruler at the time is in your 1st house. And so for some of you, especially Gemini and Sag, there's a lot of trying to understand the other person and like trying to find the middle ground. And I think that that's a good thing. You might be going back to therapy. You might be reconnecting with an old flame. You might be learning to kind of communicate and talk to your partner and kind of be more attentive and kind of discuss where you're going, right? This new moon, it does square Saturn in your 10th house. So for a lot of you guys, it's like talking to your romantic partners or your business partners about, your long-term career goals or some of your responsibilities and like the impact that that's having on your relationship. For some of you guys, it's how you're managing clients and how you're dealing with your one-on-one relationships with people professionally. I think that, the Mercury retrograde in opposition to Jupiter is actually trying to teach you that you're more similar or on the same page as other people than maybe you give yourself credit for. Maybe there can be some delays and miscommunications with other people, but just give them a little bit of time. And obviously be mindful that there can be people through the retrograde that are coming back to you because there's something that needs to kind of get worked out karmically. That's definitely a theme with a retrograde. All right, so we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be doing this new moon in Sagittarius in your 6th house of your natal chart. And the 6th house obviously has connections with your health, your habits, your workspace, your pets, your daily routine. So, you know, this is a new moon where you might be seeking to kind of broaden your horizons, and it can be, you know, through work-related travel, new employment, you know, a job that allows you to learn or to teach, exploring and learning more about health, you know, creating more time for creating more time in your schedule for traveling. This could be a time also where you are making some rearrangements or reorganizations of your office space, or maybe of your daily routine. You are tending to health, right? Especially with the Mercury retrograde kind of being here. I feel like for you guys, my tips are introduce more variety into your daily routine, or, you know, explore more alternative kind of health practices. I'm predicting a new approach to work or health that's much more holistic or adventurous, and you're going to be adopting that over the next 6 months. And your intention should be about setting in goals, improving your work efficiency or your health through embracing new routines. Now, you know, new moon in the 6th house is a great time to be like, I'm going back to the gym. I'm going to see the doctor. You know, I'm getting on with like my work and my health habits. But with a Mercury retrograde, it's kind of saying also part of this is what's shifting with your mental health, what's shifting with your sleep cycle, you know, what's going on where you're learning to kind of let go of self-undoing kind of habits and things that are actually not promoting good health. And the squares to Saturn are kind of saying that you're kind of having to learn how to do this. Saturn in the 9th house is like, do you have a hypnotherapist? Do you have a meditation teacher? You know, do you have a guru, a spiritual practice, something that you're doing to kind of have that kind of better balance? And is there a teacher or somebody who's coming in that's showing you like form, or showing you like how to do this properly? For others, if it's not work or health related, it can be about new skills and learning new skills. So that way you can, you know, continue to kind of expand when it comes to your professional life. And you might be making more time for training or traveling. That could be something else that could be coming up for you. Okay. All right. So let's move on to Leo and Leo rising. What's up, Leo? You guys have a beautiful new moon in Sagittarius in a fellow sister fire sign. So it's trining your sun, moon, or rising, especially if you're kind of the first 10 degrees of Leo. You love the 5th house, right? You're traditionally kind of associated with this energy. So you have like a triple whammy. You know, sun in the 5th house, which is very powerful. It's all about creativity, romance, fun, taking chances. You got a new moon here where you can focus on those things that you like most. You've got a Mercury retrograde, which is also having you reconsider and rework some of these themes. And you're having trines to Mars where you're feeling more incentivized to, you know, do more 5th house things. So quite a cool new moon for Leo risings. If you want more creativity, romance, you know, fun in your life. I do think the effects of this is just a great time for planting seeds when it comes to creativity, creative projects, self-employment, you know, taking chances, dating, falling in love, new adventures, things revolving around children. Okay, so children are a big theme in the 5th house. You might be seeking more joy or expressing yourself more boldly. There might be a sense of, you know, wanting to like engage in more creative projects, maybe starting a new hobby, or dating someone from a different culture or a different background. Mercury's retrograde here, so lovers from the past can come back. You can also be making commitments to go back to old hobbies or things that you once worked on. But I'm predicting new romantic connections or creative projects for many Leo and Leo risings can be starting now, and a focus really on intentions for joy, love, and creativity, and bringing more fun into your life. And you're going to realize this whole next month is going to be like, what do I love? What do I create? How can I have more fun? And that's especially true because it's trining Mars in your 1st house. So there is this sense of wanting to go after some of these things. You know, being daring, traveling, having, you know, fun, even romance, you know, these are all kind of themes that come up with some of the trines between the 1st and the 5th house. Enjoy that, Leo. It's a good one. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. So you guys are next up in the mutables, okay, that are going to be kind of experiencing some of the squares. And truth be told, this is pretty colorful for Virgo risings right now. December in general is very colorful for Virgo risings because you guys are the one kind of sign that's kind of missing in the skies right now, where we have Jupiter in Gemini, Saturn in Pisces, you know, a Mercury retrograde, new moon in Sagittarius. So everything's kind of ping-ponging off of your chart. They're all influencing and affecting each other. And your chart ruler is retrograde. So there is this sense of I'm moving, I'm going back, I'm changing, I'm reorganizing, I'm reflecting on the past, I'm with family, you know, there's something changing about your kind of internal world, which in turn impacts relationships, impacts career, impacts you, your health, your body. So with that being said, having a new moon in the 4th, the area of the chart that deals with home, family, roots, right, the past, this is a time where you might feel an urge to really explore your roots or make changes in your living environment that reflects your need for more space or freedom. So moving, looking for property, selling homes, rearranging your space, bringing in a new roommate, you know, renovating, these are all things that in theory you can do around the time of a new moon. But remember, Mercury is retrograde here. So it's kind of like, if these are things you want to do, you're using the month of December to plan, right? And kind of strategize where not you're going to be over the next month, but where you're going to be maybe in 6 months. And also doing something maybe temporary right now until you get to that point, right? Or realizing the process you have to go through to kind of prepare to make a bigger change in your home. So, you know, consider redecorating in a way that inspires adventure or maybe studying family history. I am predicting that family dynamics might shift for some of you guys. You know, you might start a new chapter in your home life. You want to, when it comes to your intentions, you want to aim towards creating a home base that's, you know, for exploration or intentions to mend family relationships. I think the Mercury retrograde is that. Also, you know, the squares to Saturn can be talking about changes in situations in regards to your home or your living situation and the impact that that is having on relationships, spouses, or partners. So it could mean, well, I'm, you know, changing something about my living situation, you know, because my partner is not happy with where we're living, or, you know, maybe we are committing more seriously, Saturn in the 7th. So therefore, you know, we are moving in together, or actually, no, we're separating and we're kind of breaking our things up. So this is the rearrangement that's kind of happening in the 4th house. Simultaneously, it opposes Jupiter in your 10th. So it's like, some of you guys are going, well, you know, I got a new job offer somewhere else, so I'm relocating, or, you know, my partner, you know, inherited a home, so we're moving to another city. These things are kind of happening because of all the ricochet stuff going on in the other parts of your chart, which are all in angular houses. So life feels very loud right now for a lot of Virgo risings, I would imagine. Get grounded in the 4th house and focus more on like the kind of the home base that you're hoping to kind of create, what you need to deal with immediately emotionally within the home or the family, to maybe better relationships, partnerships, opportunities, and also kind of continue to expand when it comes to your career as well as your reputation, okay? So we've got Libra and Libra rising. You guys will be experiencing a new moon in Sagittarius in your 3rd house. And this is about communication, siblings, short distance trips, okay? So vehicles as well, what you're learning, like, I would say like media, blogs, websites, social media, stuff like that kind of comes through the 3rd house also. So when you have a new moon here, you know, your mind is like buzzing with new ideas and plans for trips. Communication can become more direct and philosophical, although with Mercury retrograde in your 3rd, there's still some kind of moving parts and you're kind of thinking things through kind of behind the scenes about, you know, what you believe in, and there's some stuff maybe that you're kind of mulling over if you're wanting to make changes in some way to how you communicate and connect with other people. There can also be some blind spots when it comes to traveling, Libra rising, so be mindful of that as well. I recommend, especially with the 3rd house, like Mercury's strong in the 3rd house, even if it's retrograde and if it's in its fall. I feel like this is a time where Libra risings are really going to benefit from writing down your thoughts and going back to those thoughts, going back to those notes and updating them. Engaging in learning, starting a blog, going back to a blog, you know, reworking a website, something like that can be really good during this time. And I'm predicting new beginnings in how you communicate and you know, or how you learn. That might be emerging as well. And I would set intentions to improve communication skills, learn something new, or reconnect with someone. So it can be someone overseas because the connection to the 12th house. It can be going back and, you know, learning, you know, something again, reviewing something. It could be learning more about meditation, more reflecting on, you know, spiritual kind of texts. That could be the connection to the 9th or the 12th house. But it could also mean that you're reviewing old journals and notes and things, you know, or you're going back over projects or things that you wrote that you didn't complete. And I would just say some of you guys are going to want to plan travel. Some of you guys are going to want to get a new car. Some of you guys are going to want to move. And I just really recommend taking your time. because obviously we've got squares to Saturn in the 6th house, which tells me there's either a health issue, there's a pet issue, there's a scheduling issue, there's a job issue that is literally not hindering, but limiting or delaying your ability to do some of these things. And you've probably seen this already through the lead up to this particular new moon with the squares to Saturn. Saturn is saying that, you know, it's going to take more hard work, dedication, scheduling, and timing. And also there is also sometimes some upheavals that can happen with people at work, or some upheavals that can happen with the details, or even with health, that kind of thwarts the process. And so it can be kind of more mentally impacting you than anything. But I would also say just be mindful of like changes that are going to happen with vehicles and like vehicle maintenance. That's another thing that comes up with like a retrograde in the 3rd house square Saturn is, you know, you guys might be like, well, does it make sense to just, you know, buy a new car, or to like fix the one that I have? Or does it make sense to stay in the home that we're living in? Or, you know, should we like move to a place that's going to be like kind of more along the lines of what we need? That's going to potentially be getting kind of worked out with some of those squares as well. Okay. All right. So we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. For you, Scorpio, you've got a new moon in Sagittarius in your 2nd house of money. So this is where you do your abundance work. Oh, Scorpio and Scorpio risings. Well, I mean, a new moon in your 2nd house is definitely good for setting intentions in regards to finances, values, and possessions, right? So a new moon here is where, you know, you're seeking new ways to increase your income through reevaluating your values in regards to money and possessions. So everybody's going to be in different perspective here. You know, some Scorpio risings are in the frame of mind that's like, man, Mercury's retrograde in my 2nd house. Money is tight. You know, I'm trying to figure out how to make more of it. I'm cutting back. And so the new moon can mean that because you're reevaluating or reassessing what you're spending, you know, what you're consuming, what your output is, it's going to really be kind of changing the way that you look at what you ultimately value. The other way of looking at this is that this can be about looking into investments or opportunities that broaden your financial base, but I would say do it with caution. You've got your 8th house ruler retrograde in the 2nd, which means there could be something changing with other people's money or some fluctuation with interest rates, banks, loans, things like that, where, you know, if money's meant to come back to you, if you're meant to be refunded, or if you're meant to kind of give, you know, receive something back, like you will get it back. But this is also about recognizing and realizing that there's a lot of give and take, both with your 8th house Lord retrograde, a new moon in opposition to Jupiter. There's a lot of money in, money out that's kind of going on with this particular cycle. You're also going to see that there's potential for growth in areas where, you know, there are shifts in what you value. So there can be some kind of growth where all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I'm valuing something new. And usually Scorpio rising, Sagittarius in the 2nd house, like they don't always want things, they want experiences. You know, they want to spend money on traveling, they want to spend money on education. Unless you have a bunch of planets, you know, in your 2nd house, maybe you're going to kind of have much more of a focus and emphasis on physical things, generally not so much. And what's interesting is that with your 8th house ruler, with your 2nd house ruler in the 8th house, a lot of Scorpios and Scorpio risings are like, I want to invest my extra money. I want to pay off my debt. You know, I want to be able to get a better interest rate. It's more about being like, how can I take what I'm making and not buy things and put it into like, you know, new opportunities and ways of being able to grow my resources. And you're talking to other people about that, whether it's like investment strategists or even, you know, your romantic partners or your marital partners, about how to make these things happen because Jupiter is there. There is, I think, going to be more of a focus on intentions relating to financial independence and appreciating what you do have and aligning your values with your resources. The one thing that you want to watch is that there is a square to Saturn. Okay. So something about, you know, Saturn in the 5th house could mean, you know, your resources are being impacted if like you don't feel good enough, right? If you don't know your worth, if you don't know what to charge, if you don't know what price to put on your services, to put on your art, to put on your music, you know, whatever you're creating, Saturn in the 5th, you could be selling yourself short. And then there could be the sense of like not making as much as you would want to make, right? There can also be changes in expenses relating to children. So Saturn in the 5th house could be the responsibility that comes from children, the responsibility that comes from children coming in, the responsibility that comes from you know, your own personal business. Saturn in the 5th house could be if you're self-employed. And a lot of Scorpio risings are going to be like, well, am I making enough money doing what I'm doing? Is it bringing in enough income for me right now? That could be part of it as well. You have to believe in yourself. That's what a lot of the second and the fifth house is, I think, with some of these aspects. Be very careful with speculative stuff, Scorpio. I think I would say this to any Scorpio rising, just with like the Mercury retrograde in the second, but the Mercury retrograde in opposition to Jupiter could be big swings, like lots of money comes in, lots of money goes out. And also the square to Saturn could be speculative stuff. So gambling, the stock market, you know, things like that. Like usually when we see Mercury turn retrograde in the second house, it can be very feast or famine. It can be a situation where if you haven't really been making a lot of money, we could see that actually, you know, you start going back to work or you get a raise or there's extra income coming in. But if things have been good and if you've been feasting, with opposition to Jupiter, you know, there could be something outside of you where somebody needs assistance, they need support, your partner needs money, or, you know, something's like that's going on. And then it squares Saturn, where then all of a sudden, you know, there's giving and then there's kind of taking. So I would be very cautious and careful with expenses. And I would also be very careful with, you know, being too risky when it comes to money that you're not potentially willing to lose. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Okay. All right. So let's move now to Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, as this is your guys' new moon, new you. And there's definitely something new and improved that's kind of coming for, I think, a lot of Sag and Sag risings. I think that's fair to say with the Mercury retrograde in your sign. When you have a new moon in your first house, this is all about yourself, your identity, and your appearance. So this new moon is a time where you have the opportunity to kind of like feel inspired to explore new aspects of your personality, your identity. Obviously, this could be through travel, education, learning something new. There's just this urge to expand your personal horizons, okay? So that's the good news. I do encourage you guys to embrace new experiences that shape who you are and be open to change in how you present yourself. I also feel like, you know, this is a time where personal reinvention or a new outlook in life could definitely begin. And I recommend setting intentions or goals revolving around personal growth, self-discovery, and authenticity. Now, here's where things get a little confusing. Obviously, you know, Mercury, any planet in the first house is like what you get up and you do first thing in the morning. Okay, so the sun's there, you get up, you shine, there's a spotlight on you, your energy, your body. The new moon's there, so it's also kind of like, what do I want for myself? And then you've got Mercury there, which rules relationships, right? And also responsibility and career, and it's retrograde. So you could feel like you're talking to seventh house people. You're talking to a therapist. You're talking to your partners. You're talking to your siblings. You're talking to your friends. You're getting feedback, or people you might feel like are being critical of you, right? They're telling you, you should do this, you should do that. What's going on with you? Why aren't you communicating very well? What's wrong, you know? And simultaneously, Mercury is squaring Saturn, okay? I would love to hear from Sag and Sag risings right now. I think for a lot of you guys, there is this sense of being like, this can be a turning point, and I say this with love, okay? This can be a turning point for some Sag and Sag risings where you guys realize that you could be the problem. Okay, I've seen enough Sag risings in my practice over the last month to kind of go, yeah, there's a common theme here where, you know, yes, you're getting a lot of feedback from people with Mercury retrograde in your sign. You're having a lot of people who are kind of saying things to you, and you might kind of hear the same stuff over and over, you know? And then you're seeing Mercury square Saturn where, you know, yes, there could be heavy stuff going on right now, emotionally, with your home, with your family, with your private life, things that most people don't know. And it can be really wearing on you. And so I think that with like a new moon and then Mercury going retrograde is like a time to like really reflect and be like, okay, like, you know, am I projecting this? Like, am I communicating differently? Is there kind of some blockages? Am I kind of disconnecting myself or not allowing others to kind of help me or support me? Where can I better reconnect with other people? How can I establish a better relationship with myself, show up for myself, make the changes that I need to make for me, so that way I can be 100% for others. But it's gotta be, you gotta show up for yourself first, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I think it's gonna take the entire month of December to really work this out. The positive is, because I wanna focus on the positive, is that doing this is going to better your relationships with other people, right? Jupiter in the 7th. If you can reassess the way that you are, you know, processing, communicating, thinking, it can make your relationships so much better. It can enrich them. It can bring in relationships if you're single. It can help you meet people. I mean, come on, Mercury rules 7th house. So if it's retrograding in your first, it means that you might attract the right client, the right romantic partner. You might meet the perfect therapist. You might meet the best client, you know? And it's all about being able to seize that moment of opportunity. It literally is the Sabian symbol for you guys. Seize the moment. Don't let the moment pass you by. You've got trines to the North Node in the 5th, so it's about making yourself feel loved, happy, supported, having fun. It's also trining the Mars transit in the 9th, which could be about teaching, traveling, going back to school, exploring, all of these things. So I feel like for some of you guys, this is more about a period of self-integration. And for those of you guys who have been isolating, kind of hermiting out, like now it's time to kind of come out and like start communicating with people better and like letting them know where you are and what you've got going on. And I hope it's a good one for you. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time for this to kind of fully unfold. Okay? Enjoy that new moon. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are doing this new moon in Sagittarius in your 12th house, where it's hidden, it's subconscious. We're kind of getting into that time of the year where things are cycling out. You're processing stuff as you're getting ready to come into Capricorn season. So this is the new moon where we take stock of how everything's kind of gone over the past 12 months. Obviously, this is about your subconscious, your spiritual side. You know, this is also a house that deals with endings and completions. So the effects of a new moon here is really, it's a time for a new inner exploration, possibly through meditation, spiritual practices, or dealing with endings in a much more philosophical way, ceremonies, rituals, you know, traveling, you know, and like that might also be kind of helping you kind of complete something or allow something to come to a natural end. And I encourage you guys to engage in practices that connect with your subconscious or your spiritual self. Now, I predict that there might be hidden aspects of your life that come to light over the next couple of months, and you might find closure from past issues. Your intentions, you want to focus on releasing old patterns, obviously developing stronger faith, spiritual growth, and understanding your subconscious motivations. Now, what's interesting is at the time of this particular new moon, the ruler is in your 6th house, so you might actually realize and recognize with, Jupiter retrograde, that something about your health habits, how you're working, your routine, has a direct impact on your mental health, and your sleep, and stress levels and anything like that. Jupiter, obviously, in the 6th might mean it could be something that you're reading, you're watching. It could be, social media and your intake in that department. It could be, smoking. It could be lack of physical movement, and how that's impacting your health or your mental health. And obviously this is a new moon that's challenging you. You are Saturn, and Saturn is in your 3rd house. For my Capricorns, I'd be like, you guys need a stationary bike. You need to be going for a walk. You need to be on an actual bike. You need to be walking the dog. You need to be quitting smoking. You need to be journaling. Things like that. We want better mind, body, spirit health, right? Mind, body, spirit. And because Saturn is the focal point, of this square, it's saying like, you got to be doing some breath work. You got to be journaling. Maybe you're using a form of divination. You're doing something that's very 3rd house, communicating, writing, learning, moving, to help better balance out these energies between the opposition in your 12th of self-undoing and the 6th of health habits and routine. So you have the ability to create change. That's the beauty. And now that Saturn is direct, you can actually make some of these moves. 6th house is healing. So obviously healing centers, but also I think of jail cells, hospitals, rehabs, therapy offices, temples, churches, that kind of stuff. Some of you guys might actually feel like you need to get into a spiritual or religious routine. Some of you guys might feel like you need to actually go back and travel and visit a place that you haven't been in a while, that you need to go back to a specialist, that, maybe you need to go back to like a private kind of healing studio, right? These things can kind of be coming up during this time. I would just say be mindful that both the new moon as well as Mercury's retrograde is really challenging Saturn, and clearly it wants you to kind of have a better frame of mind and communicate better, or be able to kind of better express your thoughts or your ideas, or just breathe, right? For some of you guys, it's like quitting smoking, and I would say, what a great transit if you want to quit smoking, that you're like, I'm going to go and see a hypnotherapist. Like a new moon in the 12th house with Mercury retrograde, score Saturn. I'm trying to stop having phobia of driving. I'm trying to stop biting my nails. I'm trying to stop drinking. I'm trying to stop smoking. Like these are all things that could be handled in the subconscious realm, I think, with like a new moon in the 12th house. that could be really helpful for you. And I think there's also going to be lots of like insight and kind of symbolism that can be coming through your dreams here simultaneously as well. Okay. All right, we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to be doing this new moon in Sag in your natal 11th house. And this is all about friendships, groups, allies, wishes, dreams, aspirations. So this is definitely a fun house to have a new moon in. The effects of a new moon in Sagittarius in your 11th is obviously setting the intention for new groups, social circles, friendships, kind of aligning with people that have similar aspirations or ideas, and you know, they might be coming into your life right now. There might be more opportunities to kind of gather, celebrate, party, network, kind of connect. This is a time where we want to meet new people or do new things or plan new events, basically. So I would recommend like joining clubs or networks that focus on growth, learning, or even like humanitarian efforts. You can do that with the 11th house. I'm predicting that friendships might push you towards your dreams and new community involvement in some way. It could be people who are coming back from the past with that Mercury retrograde, you know, reconnections in some way, shape, or form, reunions, you know, running into people, seeing people, people adding you on social media that you haven't seen in a while. That can definitely happen here. And I would recommend setting intentions revolving around expanding your social network and people who are, you know, going to be positive influences on you. People who are going to be inspiring you, people who are going to be encouraging you to grow and to change and to learn. Now, during the time of this new moon, the ruler is in your 5th house. So likely you're seeking creative collaborators, right? Like if you're a writer, if you're a performer, if you're an actor, if you're somebody who's also like looking for, you know, artistic collaboration, like somewhere where you can take some of the things that you're creating to an audience, right? The 11th house is the audience. So if you're a creator, if you're self-employed, this is like trying to figure out, okay, how do I go and meet other people, or how do I kind of put that stuff out there and kind of bring attention to what I'm creating, what I'm building? And so in order to do that, you have to network. Also, if you're trying to expand your romance, right, Jupiter in the 5th, you're going out there and you're networking, you're going to parties, you're maybe getting on online dating, you're getting involved in a pool of some kind so you can meet more people. But take what you're creating, or take what you want to share, or you know, maybe things that you're selling, right? Jupiter could be about something that you kind of craft or create, and maybe you're taking it to fairs, gatherings, parties, networking events, things like that. And that maybe is part of the retrograde, that it's bringing you into that because you see new ways and methods of being able to make money as Mercury is kind of connected to, you know, joint assets. Now, obviously, this is a new moon that's going to square Saturn, and that's your traditional ruler. So Saturn in the 2nd house can have you feeling a little tight financially. There can also be like a sense of like really questioning your worth, or, you know, questioning whether or not you're going to be good enough, or if you're going to make enough, or if you're making money in a meaningful way, Saturn in Pisces. So some of this, you know, kind of concerns for your resources, or the sense of being more serious or more, I think maybe invested in the idea of becoming more financially solid, that is what's kind of pushing on this new moon. It's trying to kind of get you to go and connect with other people, so that way you can feel more abundant. You can feel like you have more resources. It's also squaring Jupiter in the 5th. So like there is this sense of maybe feeling like you're creating for the sake of creating, but like the money hasn't come yet. And so in order to be able to feel, I think, abundant and like more so kind of connected to maybe an audience, or, you know, even like clients or people who'd be interested in like purchasing what you have, you have to go and surround yourself with people who are abundant, right? Sagittarius in the 11th house, people who are working artists, working entertainers, you know, people who are putting their work out there. Like you want to go and be where those people are. So I would say you want to set your intentions to kind of connect with those types of people. Be mindful that, you know, being a part of clubs, networks, you know, subscriptions, it may cost with the square to Saturn. It might cost you to join these things, or there's going to be dues, or there's going to be some kind of monthly subscription. But it may be worth the price, right? Because of the connections that you're going to make and the people that you're going to make. Or it might be worth, you know, buying a ticket to go to some kind of, you know, event because of some of the connections that you're potentially going to be making. Okay. All right, and we have Pisces and Pisces rising. So you're the last of my mutables. Pisces, you got a new moon happening in Sagittarius in your natal 10th house of career. This is also connected to your reputation and your public image. So 10th house is the tippy top of the chart. So this is all about your ambition. When you have a new moon that's happening here, first of all, this is squaring you by sign, okay? And obviously you've heard me say probably for the other signs, Saturn is a focal point of the square in this particular new moon. So you have the option to either say, I'm gonna show up, right? Or I'm gonna throw on the brakes. And you have to be mindful of where maybe there is like a need to get out of your own way, okay? I'm gonna kind of pick on you and Sag a little bit because you guys definitely, there is some stuff coming up that's like, you can be having a little bit more challenge with this new moon because of some of the aspects that are going on with Saturn. So just stay with me for a second. New moon in the 10th, right? We want to, with a new moon here, focus on career. So your career could take a much more adventurous or kind of philosophical angle. You might be seeking a role that aligns more with your values, and also, you know, it's allowing for growth, and it could be, you know, something really exciting. Some of you guys will be looking for career opportunities that involve teaching, publishing, or international business. I do predict it's very possible that a new career path or a significant shift in how you're seen professionally is going to begin, not just because of the new moon, but also because of the Mercury retrograde. And I also feel like this is a time where you want to aim for career goals that allow your personal freedom and growth to shine, and also something that you feel like is going to have a very meaningful impact. Obviously, you know, if you want to go to a job interview, if you want to launch a business, if you want to get back into working, if you want to change directions in your career, generally we do this after a new moon in the 10th house. However, this new moon is also with a Mercury retrograde. So it's also saying there is some rearrangement, changes, shifts going on in regards to your bosses, your schedule, where you're working, you know, the kind of work you want to do. And Mercury rules your relationship with others. So it can also be your status is changing. So some Pisces and Pisces risings are like, you know, I used to be an employee, now I'm a CEO. Or, you know, I used to be married, now I'm divorced. It could be that. But there's something changing about the way that you relate out in the world to other people, and something about your private life becoming more public. Okay, so that's kind of coming into the spotlight in the 10th house. So Mercury retrograde in the 10th, sometimes we go back to old jobs, you know, sometimes we change direction in a career, or sometimes there is some kind of change with management, or, you know, something that happens. But in Sagittarius, it's for the better, right? And this is going to be in opposition to Jupiter, which is your traditional ruler. So the change in the career front impacts the home and vice versa. And it's also squaring Saturn in your first house. So you're getting more serious about your goals. That's the positive, right? But the challenge is that now Saturn is direct. And when you have planets in your 10th house squaring Saturn in your first, you feel like the changes are harder. It takes more time. You know, career and, you know, bosses can be more demanding. There can be a lot more responsibility. And I feel like it's all going to be what you make of it. If you're willing to show up with Saturn in the first and go, I'm so committed to my goals, because it rules your 11th, that I know I am, you know, here to do bigger, better things. I know I have to change my job. I know I have to revamp something. I know I got to get back in the driver's seat, you know, then this will work well for you. But accountability is huge here. There is also this feeling with, you know, Jupiter square Saturn that some of you guys are feeling less than enthusiastic about your home or your living situation, or there's something changing in regards to your home and your living situation, and that is now impacting or, you know, affecting your routine and your work, right? And so it's really quick, like when Jupiter squares Saturn, we can get super critical and kind of like moody, you know, or not totally thrilled with our home or our domestic situation. And then we got planets in the 10th house square Saturn, where it's like, man, you know, the boss is kind of like really kind of riding me and being very critical of the things that I may or may not be doing. So you may feel like you're getting it from both angles. And my advice is, you know, be Saturn, be rock solid, be committed. If you really want change in your life, and whether that's in your career or in your home life or just for yourself, lock in, commit to this change. Even if it means that you have to make some difficult decisions in the now, for there to be bigger shifts intermittently kind of down the road, so be it. Some of you guys may actually be walking away from a job and changing something about your career and also moving, and you're kind of at this precipice of being like, if not now, when? And you don't have a plan. And I feel like that's okay because, you know, you're going to find that this means you're either going back home, or there's going to be some kind of change that's going to be happening with your career, which is going to allow you to relocate. Something's going to happen here. And Jupiter is at the bottom of the chart, which means that all roads lead to how can I be home more? How can I get involved in property? How can I work from home? How can I be focused on family? And that may be taking you away from work. That may also be kind of, requiring a lot more patience on your part. But all in all, I feel like this is the time where if you want to make some really big changes, and it doesn't matter if it's your career, your relationship status out in the world, some big announcement, what have you, now is the time to commit to that. December is the month to work out all of the kinks and figure out, the path and what that's actually going to look like. And for some of you guys, it's like, well, does that mean I have to change my relationship before I change my job? Or if my relationship changes, do I go back to work? Or if I want to go back to work, do I need to look for a job in another, location so I can live somewhere that I like to live? They all influence each other. And the reworking right now is happening mostly in your 10th house because that's where the action is, but it's also going to be feeding off of the changes emotionally and within your home, okay? So I hope that's helpful for you guys. I hope that kind of gives you a little bit more insight. This is one that obviously had a lot more to kind of unpack, but I feel like it's got so much, it's so rich with opportunity that if we could just slow down, right, and like really integrate some of the lessons and the themes of this and also keep an open mind, I think it could be extremely fortuitous for us in about 6 months' time. And I want to show you that really quick before I let you go. Because we're going to see this manifest and turn into a full moon. Where is this full moon? Okay, it's going to be a full moon that is going to be happening in Sagittarius. Okay, so this will be June 11th, 2025. And at this time, okay, the full moon in Sag is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is in Cancer. It's in its exaltation. So it means that it's really, really, really positive. It's really sweet. And look what's happening with Mercury now. It's conjunct Jupiter. This means that people are going to be, I think, happier in better home and living situations. They're going to be in more expansive emotional spaces. They will have relocated. They will have expanded something about their home business, property, real estate, families. Their emotional health might be better. We might have better international communications. We may have better relationships with people within our own home countries, so on and so forth. So that's positive. There's some other stuff that we'll unpack. Yes, we see some squares to Saturn and Neptune, so that also does seem to kind of talk a lot about still there being some differences in terms of like people's frame of mind, and you're going to see society kind of split between Saturn and Neptune, which is going to be more individuals becoming more individualized, focusing more on themselves, being independent, being kind of nomadic, versus some groups of individuals that are going to be very much about home, domestic, family growth. And there is like this kind of divergence that's going to be happening, I think, in this next year, where we're going to see people kind of go into two extreme kind of camps. Anyway, with that being said, I hope that's helpful in giving you guys insight into this, obviously this new moon in Sagittarius. Don't forget to leave me your comments below. I love to hear from you guys. Come back throughout the next, month. Let me know what's been changing and how you've been adapting your guys' your intention list. Come back in 6 months. Let's see what manifests from this particular new moon. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Consider joining my memberships if you want to support me as a full-time content creator. I put videos out full-time on YouTube for you guys, long-form educational content to help you better relate to each other as well as the cosmos. You want to see more about my work and what I do? Book a personal reading with me or learn astrology. Check out my links below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Until next time, I'll see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy this new moon. You guys take care.